But hi, everybody. My name is Julia Kothra. I'm a doctoral intern at CAPS in psychology. And this is my first year at Utah State. And I'm actually leaving at the end of the summer, at the end of July, unfortunately. But my time will be done. And I am working on a PhD in counseling psychology at Indiana University. And I'm leaving Utah State because I will be done with the program and getting a job. So I have a master's in sport and performance psychology, and I have a bachelor's in molecular biology. So I'm really happy to be here with all of you today, and we have a great alum panel for all of us as well. This is going to be interesting. Like, this is my first time doing something like this in this format. So maybe there's going to be some weird stuff. Maybe it'll be fun. We'll figure it out. I am definitely more the type to make things informal. And it looks like we have the number of people that we can be pretty comfortable doing more discussion style. So I don't know how this is going to change when I share my screen, but I don't know if I'll be able to see all of you. So if you have questions, like while the presentation is happening, please feel free to interrupt us, because if I can't see you, then I can't see you like waving your hand or anything. Or maybe like use a chat box, and then Amy or Justice can pop in and ask the question for you. I would love to go around and get introductions, but I don't know that we have time for that because we only have an hour for this. Is that right? Yeah, okay. All right, so just a disclaimer before we get really started. I live on a busy street and I also have a dog. So there's a possibility that he could be barking and you get to meet him. Maybe, hopefully that won't happen because this is being recorded. Okay, any questions or anything before we get started? Okay, cool. So let me share my screen, see if I can do this. I can, all right. So can everybody see that? Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to see all of you. Okay. All right, here we go. There it is. This is titled Training for Transition. I'm Julia. And let's just hop to the next slide because we have really cool pictures of all of our panelists. So panelists, who wants to introduce yourselves first? You can say your name, what sport you played, and where you're at now, what you're doing. Michael, you're the first one I see. I might call you out.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, it wasn't letting me unmute. Yeah, my name is Michael Okonkwo. I am from Chandler, Arizona. I played at Utah State from 2011 to 2015. I got my undergrad in finance, and I got my master's in financial economics while I was there. So yeah, now I am in Phoenix. I'm working for my family company, growing a business, and just growing myself every day.
Thanks, Michael. Brianna, you want to go next?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Awesome. My Wi-Fi is kind of going in and out, so I apologize if I freeze, but my name's Bree. Brianna Alfiero is my full name. I, graduated. I went to Utah State from 2011 to 2015. I did gymnastics there. I'm originally from Reno, Nevada, so after that, I moved back here. So I'm currently in Reno, Nevada. I am a cardiac ICU nurse right now and also have my own business. So that's a little bit about me.
Thanks, Bree. Sarah.
All right, hey guys, my name is Sarah Landis. Like Bree, I was also a gymnast at Utah State, competed from 2011 to 2015. Originally from Edmond, Oklahoma, but after I graduated, I stuck around and I am currently a development officer for Utah State Athletics. So always excited to be on the back end of athletics now.
Thanks, Sarah. And I actually don't see Chucky or Jamie. Is that right, Amy?
So Jamie and Chucky hope to get on. Chucky had a meeting that moved, and then he already told us about the other one. So you may see two extra faces. We won't probably do intros at that point, but they'll bleed into the conversation.
Yeah, cool. So Chucky and Jamie, if they can join us, they both played football at Utah State. And Jamie is now he's an engineer of some sort in Boise. He was talking about like I don't have it in front of me. We'll get there. He's an engineer in Boise, and Chucky is a grad assistant football coach at Texas Tech. Okay. Just so you know, since this is being recorded, we are also going to send out the slides at the end, and we'll have all the bios and everything for everybody at the end. So the plan today is really to talk about retirement, what makes it hard, and give you an outline of a plan for you to take with you and get started as you start to think about looking forward in your life outside of sport. Our goals really include all of those things above, but mostly helping you understand that you have all the skills and you have all the tools that you need to do this successfully and to be successful on the other side of sport. You already have that, and you might just need a little bit of nudging to remember that. And a disclaimer is that this presentation is going to feel kind of rushed, possibly, and it's going to be a little bit repetitive, but that's the point. We want you to get all of this information, and it's going to take a few different repetitions to get it all the way through and soaked in and internalized. And at the same time, if there's things that you still have questions about, I didn't put everything I know on these slides because that's pretty overwhelming, but we want you to ask those questions, and we want you to know that all of us, the alums, the administration, the staff, we're all here to support you, even if you feel like your questions aren't answered in this presentation. So we want you to know you're not alone, and we're here for you, okay? So the first thing that I really want to talk about is just lay out that there's going to be different phases. So wherever you're at this point, you might be in immediate relief phase. It might be, I don't have any more practice, no more weights at 5 a.m. and this is awesome. I don't have anybody yelling at me about what I need to be doing. That's actually pretty cool. But maybe you've already gone to this phase. I think eventually most of us do feel a little bit of sadness. And so it might feel like one day you're in a uniform and you had your last competition, and then you're turning everything in, and maybe it feels like nobody recognizes you anymore, or you can't get any support from staff. Like maybe you tweaked your knee, or you have a weird pain in your back, and you can't just walk into the training room anymore and get that kind of support that you need. I don't know about any of the other alums, but I realized how expensive tennis shoes were when I finally had to start buying them on my own. Losing all the free gear was really hard for me, but I think even more than that was losing just the consistent interactions with my teammates, my coaches, all of the support staff, just that constant contact. I really relied on it as an athlete through college. So all of these phases are presented kind of in a circle, but what I really want you to understand is that you might be vacillating between immediate relief and feeling like, actually, I'm good. Like, I don't feel sad at all, and that's okay. I just want you to know that wherever you're at in this phase, in any of these phases, is okay. Whatever you're feeling is normal. It's going to be kind of a wild ride, but you're going to get through it. And we're here to help guide you through that, but also let you know that it's fine. Whatever you're feeling is fine. It's just going to be it's a process. And for most of us, it feels like a process. For some of us, it might feel like, whatever, it's cool and actually really good. And if that's you, great. If it's not you, that's okay too. You don't have to do it alone. So you might feel immediate relief, maybe a little bit delayed sadness, but then you might also feel like, wow, I would do anything to go back and try a little bit harder on that one rep. Or you might have a certain play that's replaying in your mind and thinking, oh, if only I did this thing, then maybe I would be an All-American, or maybe I'll have that national championship, or maybe my life would be different if I had only done this one thing. And you also might be thinking, is it really over? I know the circumstances that we're in right now are very unique. And so maybe some of you find yourself in a situation that you never really anticipated being in, mostly because nobody could have ever predicted a senior season to get taken away from us in this kind of fashion. And that's going to bring up a lot of different things that haven't been studied before. And so most importantly, I want you to know, just reach out. the more that we stay isolated and the more that we feel like I'm the only one going through this, the harder it is going to be to get out of that feeling. And most likely you're not the only person feeling that. So the only way to know is just to reach out and talk about it with someone. But generally speaking, we want all of you at whatever stage, maybe it's 6 months down the road, maybe it's a little bit longer than that. We want you to feel resolved. We want you to know that this is just a thing I did. It's not actually who I am. And it might be a part of me for the rest of my life, but it doesn't have to define who I am, because we want you to move through and move on to the next chapter of your life in a way that is successful. And you use what you learned as a student athlete to help you continue that success in whatever you do moving on. And maybe this is already true for some of you, but we hope that the enjoyment of activity returns. I know for me, I didn't want to touch a weight. I didn't want to do anything active. I was a couch potato for a long time after I was done playing volleyball, but maybe some of you have continued that, and that's great. But we just hope that at some point you do get to that resolved phase. Anybody want to add anything to this? I think we were hoping Chucky was going to be here. One of the things that Chucky had talked about was how this might feel a little bit overwhelming for you if you're not ready to be retired and if you might have some more eligibility left. But the truth, and it might sound harsh, the truth is every athlete retires. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You might have a great professional career, but every professional athlete also retires. So whenever your career ends, it's going to end. And that might sound really harsh, but we're here to help you prepare for that. Okay? All right, any questions from anyone? I'm going to scan through. No, we're all good. Okay. Here we go. So now we're going to talk about why is retirement so hard? Well, you're in your comfort zone. And we all know as athletes, being in our comfort zones is pretty comfy. And there's 3 different parts to our comfort zone that makes it so cushy and hard to leave. Number 1 being competence. You know exactly what's expected of you. Being on campus at Utah State, being a student athlete here, you know how to excel in school. You know where you need to go. If you're not excelling, you have support around that. You've known what expectations you've had as a student athlete, how to practice really hard, how to lift weights, stay on top of your nutrition, all of those different aspects that are incredibly complicated. You figured it out. And it's going to be really hard to go into a new environment where you don't have all of those things figured out yet. And so just anticipating, look, I might struggle a little bit, but remember who you were as a freshman coming in. You had some support, maybe with other freshman teammates, but certainly the rest of your team, you had that built-in support, and maybe that won't be there for you when you move on, whether that's grad school or a new job, but just acknowledge that you have done really hard things before, and this is just another one of those hard things, and you can do this too. The second part is independence, feeling like you have the freedom of choice, feeling like I can do things on my own. And like I was saying before, if I need help, I know exactly where to go to get what I need. But mostly this is about being able to choose. What do I want my day to look like? What do I want my weekends to look like? And as a student athlete, it might feel a little bit like those things are robbed, especially when you're in season, but there is still some freedom there. And you kind of understand, after practice, I can choose to do homework, or maybe you've completed all your homework and you can choose to go out to dinner with your friends. So that level of choice might feel robbed from you as well as you move forward into your new life, but it's just going to take some adjusting. All of it's going to feel new at first, kind of like when you were a freshman here, but think back to your freshman year or your first year if you transferred, and start to kind of figure out, when was it that I felt more like myself on campus? And maybe it was a couple months, maybe it was faster than that, but anticipate around the same timeline for whenever you move into your next phase of life. And the last piece is really connection. This is going to sound like a broken record. I think I have something about connection on every slide, but that's because it's so important. we want you to understand that your social support system is one of the most important things in terms of making you feel like you're doing things well. If you have a strong family network, if you have a strong friend network here on campus, it might feel weird to leave that behind, but you just have to be a little bit more intentional about maintaining those relationships and putting more effort into building new ones. And right now, again, these circumstances are very unique because we can't always hug people, shake hands, do the same kind of greeting that we might normally. And so this is kind of like a test run. I would not wish a pandemic on anybody, but this is helping us understand ways that we can stay connected with people when we can't be in the same physical space as them. Okay, any questions? Okay, on this, really, I just want you to understand, you're in your comfort zone at this point because you're really good at what you do. You've made it to the Division I level, and it might feel like you're starting over wherever your next step is, but we all start somewhere, and it's gonna get easier, okay? Anybody want to add anything at this point?
I can just chime in a little bit here. I know I was going to talk a little bit about this slide, but if I can just share any knowledge with you guys about competence, you guys really have already learned everything you need to know to be successful in the real world. It's really just applying whatever you have learned throughout your journey. I'm sure you guys can all relate. You've probably come so far in just the 4 or 5 years, whatever you've been at Utah State, and you have your whole life to go. So you've already learned so much, and it's really just applying all of the lessons and things like that you've learned throughout your sports to your real life. With some of my mentors, they've told me we've all gone through school and thought that education maybe is the most important thing, but with my mentors, they've really told me that knowledge is not power, applied knowledge is power. So it's really up to you to take whatever you have learned and apply it to your real life now. So that's a little bit about competence. Independence, we've honestly kind of had it pretty easy throughout college, even though it seems like it was the most difficult thing in the world, right? We actually, as student athletes, had it pretty easy with everything kind of lined out for us. And you might have to take some steps, independently and just help learning from yourself and just doing self-development, because some things again have just completely been laid out for us, and that is a new journey for us to be completely on our own. But there's no better investment than investing in yourself. So really just tap into books and things like that to be able to grow yourself, because that's really going to make you better at the end of the day. And then I know Michael's going to talk a lot on connection. That association is huge, so I'll kind of leave that for everybody else, but definitely don't take your connections for granted. I know I have throughout the connections I've had in college, they've really helped me throughout my life after college in so many ways. So I know other people will touch on that, but I just wanted to add that.
Thanks, Bree. All right, let's move on. The other part, one of many, I should say, like I said, this is not all inclusive. One of the other reasons why retirement can be really hard, and I want to emphasize that it can be really hard, it doesn't have to be, is this idea that when somebody asks you, who are you, what do you do? For me, at least, when I was in college, the first answer I gave was always, 100% always, I play volleyball at the University of Denver. And so when I turned in my jersey, signed my exit paperwork, and left, it was, when people asked me that, I was like, I don't know. So it was just really challenging to feel like I didn't have this entire shell of my identity. And there's a reason that sometimes we over-identify with this idea of being a student athlete. Part of it is because it takes a heck of a lot of effort to get to the Division I level. And all of that effort takes a lot of time. And you have established this part of yourself completely. Nobody else on campus outside of maybe the arts department spends 20 hours a week on developing something other than academics. And that's just the truth. So the fact that you have devoted this much of your life into athletics and being excellent and being elite, that's going to be really hard to walk away from for most of us. And it might also have felt that maybe you didn't invest as much in your life after sport. And so when we think about, wait, I don't have to put on that jersey anymore, I don't have to go to practice anymore, now what am I going to be doing? Because maybe you didn't have an internship, maybe you never had a summer job, maybe you didn't have any shadowing experiences in your new career. And so it feels really foreign to you. And there's explanations for that. A lot of times people feel like, well, if I devote any time to anything other than school or my sport, I'm sacrificing time I could be spending on those things. And so it feels like we might be getting worse in those areas. And that's just the general messaging of athletics, I think. You know, if you look at the Olympic motto, it's Citius, Altius, Fortius, and that's faster, higher, stronger. And everything is always going to be, you can put in more time. And if you're not putting in the time, your enemy is putting in the time, right? And so that's like the underlying message of athletics is you can always be doing more. And so it can feel for some of us like, well, if I'm working on my career after sport, then I'm sacrificing and my enemy is getting better, when I could also be doing that. And so we're here to say that's not the case. It might feel that way, but it's also really important because, like we said earlier, everybody retires. We want you to be prepared for that. And even the pros, I'm a Denver Broncos fan. You can see Peyton Manning there. But Von Miller has had a chicken farm since day one of being a pro, and he's still really good at what he does. So there's a lot of evidence out there that you can do multiple things and be good at multiple things. And if you haven't started thinking about what you want to invest your time in after sport, now's a good time. But let me back up here a little bit. We have this idea of who we are now, but then we also have this idea of who we aren't yet and who we're going to be in the future. And because we're so focused on us now, that's great, but thinking about our future self can be really scary. It can cause maybe some anxiety. It can cause a little bit of doubt in terms of, I don't know who that person is. I don't know who that person is gonna be. And that's pretty scary because I put in so much time in this other thing. And I had a lot of direction with this other thing that I was doing. And now it feels like, wait, no, this is all on my plate. And that's way too overwhelming to even know where to start. But like Brig was saying, you have all of these skills, you have all of these tools that you're ever gonna need. It's just applying them in a new way. But what I want you to be aware of is getting stuck in between, like future self, current self, and being in that in-between spot can be kind of like this melting pot for issues. So my hope is that by warning you about it, you can see when you're kind of in between and just be like, okay, this is where I'm at. I'm acknowledging that I am kind of in it right now. I'm working through the mud. And as long as I keep going, I'm going to get out of it. But we just don't want you to get stuck right there in between. But acknowledge that it's going to be really hard to let go of what you know for things that you don't know. But you've done this before. You have absolutely done this before. You were never a college athlete 3, 4, 5 years ago, and here you are. You made it. You're doing it. And just acknowledge that as a college athlete, you also are very used to being uncomfortable. Once again, because the basis of athletics is to push yourself and continue pushing that comfort zone. You can do this. It's just going to be new territory. Okay? Questions here? Michael, did you have anything to add on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to just try and help everyone just think about a new end, because I know sometimes with college you think, okay, well, I'm done with my sport. Like, you know, everything I've kind of led up to ends, but really you guys just reflect on it and just understand that this is the beginning of your life, and really just start thinking of how you want to live your life and start having everything mapped towards that. That'll help guide you to that future self and help your current self, you know, take you where you want to. Too many times I've seen it with people where they've, you know, just thought of their identity as what sport they played or where they're at right then and there. But really just think about, hey, how do I want to live? I want to be able to, you know, do this. I want to be able to contribute. I want to be able to give back. And when you have those things, that's what ends up guiding you to the kind of lifestyle that you want for yourself. And it helps you get yourself out of your comfort zone as well too, because it's going to lead you to something new. And that new thing will actually end up helping you create a new identity. So that's all I had to add on to that.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think adding on to that, even Michael, is considering like the first time someone asked me what my hobbies were and I was fresh out of college, I was like, what do you mean? What's a hobby? Like, what else did I have time for? And that can be the fun part. It can be kind of scary, but try rock climbing. Try doing something that your coaches would have maybe really, really frowned upon or forbidden, like skiing. For me, playing volleyball, it was like, no, we already have too many ACLs. You can't do that. Yeah. So think about things that you might have been restricted or felt at least restricted to do, and see if any of those things are interesting to you. And just remember that we're not going to know if we enjoy something until we try it.
Well, and Julia, I was just going to, one thing that was crazy for me was, you know, the answer to this question for so long, for a huge part of your life. I mean, you guys are all in your 20s. So for 20 plus years, you've known the answer to this question. I want to be a Division I ... athlete. And at some point you need to transition and have that new answer. And the new answer is scary because you don't really know the new question, or the old question with the new answer is scary. And just know that that's normal and it's fine. And it's a really cool time to explore, which is also scary. So yeah, I think we might have a question. How do you balance being a student athlete and your future self? That's a great question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think sometimes, and I don't know if this is where this question is coming from, but for me, sometimes I just get so overwhelmed and anxious when I think about the future because it hasn't happened yet. And so it feels like, oh my gosh, possibilities are endless. Anything can happen. And that's pretty crippling for me. But being a student athlete, like all of those things are already taken care of for you. Like Bree was saying, we have it pretty cushy and there isn't that much choice that we have to make. But just trying to think about like answering those questions that Michael had. How do you want to be living? If you know that this is going to be over, try to brainstorm. Like all that could mean is pulling out a journal and asking yourself some questions. How do I want to live? And writing down the answers. That's not going to take too much time. And maybe it's only going to be like once a month. I'm not here to put limits on that. If you have thoughts, if you have questions, that's great. Start a conversation with someone else. Because I think that can help spark certain paths of thought that we wouldn't have thought of on our own. But really, at this point, you can just start to think about it, and that can be enough, if that's where you're at. Or you can start to take the next step and try a new hobby. Try to put yourself out there and be specific. Sarah had a really great point when we were talking about this before about athletes know how to set goals. We know how to set really specific goals. You would not be a Division I athlete if the only thing you ever thought about was, I want to be good at what I do. No, you set goals like, I need to have this many makes before I leave the court. I need to get this many great reps, and great is defined by what my coach says before I leave the gym. So you have the ability to make really specific goals, and this might be one of them. I want to think about who I am in the future in 5 months, once a week. And I'm going to do that by journaling for 10 minutes once a week. Does that make sense? Does that kind of answer your question? I don't know if I'm going to be able to see if they say yes or no.
Well, on that individual, like he says yes, and he could probably add to it too. But Mike or Sarah, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing, just to try and keep it quick. There's a good book. I know most of us didn't read. I'll be honest, I did not read throughout college. I just, made sure I got the good grades that I had and studied what I needed to. But now that I'm out of college, you're going to see that reading really helps, and it's going to be able to give you an advantage on people. But there's a good book. It's called, it's by John C. Maxwell. It's actually, it's an article that he talked about, but it's about bridges. And basically what he's talking about is where you're at in terms of your sport. It's helped you get to where you're at. And it's not like you lose that identity, but you go on a path to be able to understand where you want to go for yourself. Again, the how, in terms of how you want to live, and you go on that path, but you never forget where you actually came from. And so you want to be able to make little deposits, whether it's like every 6 months, every year or so, where it's like, hey, I'm gonna reflect on my sport. Or like, man, I'm gonna like reminisce about this, or I'm gonna talk to some of my teammates or whatever. That's what keeps the student athlete of you alive, so to speak. And then you're still on a path though to be able to take yourself where you want to go to. So that's just something I wanted to add in on that. It's John C. Maxwell, Bridges.
Bridges is the name of the book.
Just
put it in the chat. Put it in the chat function. Look it up and put it in the chat function.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, great question. Okay, so we talked about why it can be really hard, and now we're going to talk about how to plan for it. So that's a great segue. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Okay. So a lot of times it would be really great if we could just win the lottery, right? It would be wonderful if I could just have $15 million and then I wouldn't have to plan for anything. But if we really hedge our bets on something that is completely out of our control, all of us as athletes know that doesn't go very well, hardly ever. There's a reason that our coaches love to give us scouting reports, right? They help us feel prepared. They help us feel like we know what we're walking into. And so if you want to use that metaphor, we're going to kind of help you make your own scouting report. So research supports having a plan in place is going to help mitigate any distress that you might feel within this transition process, at least a lot of it. And so first thing, we want you to anticipate what might be really hard for you. What are you planning on missing? Maybe, and Sarah had this great point, you might not actually know what you're going to miss until it hits you. Like I know for me, volleyball was a fall sport, and so springtime hit, and spring was our hardest workouts, and I was like, this is sweet, I don't have to get up at 6 a.m. But then when August rolled around and that was our preseason time, I was feeling pretty sad, and I didn't anticipate that at all because spring went so well for me. I was like, who cares, this is awesome. So try to identify the potential landmines. What are you going to miss? What might be hard for you? What are you anticipating to be extra difficult because of your unique circumstances? And this is going to look different for everybody just because everybody's unique. But within that, I want you to also take stock of your desirable characteristics. And Bree was highlighting a lot of those for you earlier, but there's a lot of skills, a lot of coping strategies that you have built as an athlete that set you apart when it comes to employers, when it comes to just being able to manage your daily life a lot better than a lot of other people. And finally, ask for support. This is, like I said, support is going to be almost on every single slide. Reach out. When we feel alone, that's when things really start to spiral downhill. And I promise you, you are not alone. There is common humanity in all of these experiences. And when we go back to coping strategies, like I'm sure all of you have felt stressed. I'm sure all of you have felt alone at some point in your college career, if not earlier than that. But just remember that you have done this before. You have been in similar circumstances. They won't be the exact same, but very, very similar. And you can do this because you have all of these great skills. And some of those skills might be communication. There was a study done in 2018 that looked at like Fortune 500 companies, and the number one skill that they were looking for in their new employees was communication. Guess what? The number one skill student athletes have. You might not realize this, but it's actually communication. You have to deal with a lot of different teammates. You might not get along with any of them ever. You might not get along with any of them a lot of the time. Think about talking to your coaches, having really hard conversations. Hey coach, how can I get better? That's actually a really difficult conversation to have, but it's been normalized for you as a student athlete because it's just what everybody does. And so that's another layer that I want to add on. You have surrounded yourself with people that are elite. And so you might forget that you actually stand out, and you have a lot of skills that will set you apart a lot. And I only named like 3 or 4. There's a laundry list. If you need help coming up with the words to update your resume, talk to us. We can help. Okay. The next thing is plan. So we want you to, yes, identify the potential landmines, know that you're probably going to miss some, but it doesn't prevent your coach from making a scouting report, knowing that things are going to change, right? So still try to figure out what is an ideal environment for you. What do you know you need to be successful? Maybe it's going somewhere close to home because you'll have that social support. Maybe it's you're following a career opportunity and you know that you might be foregoing that social support for a while until you can establish that in that new environment. Maybe you need something that is pretty high powered, or maybe you want to try out a desk job. Who knows? But only you are going to know what you need and what you want to try. But that's something that we should be keeping in mind when we think about environment, ideal career, first job. There's something that I've heard, and other alums let me know if this is way off base, because it could just be my unique situation. But I've heard that you can live where you want to live, get paid what you want to get paid, or do what you want to do. But you can't have all 3. And if you can have 2 out of the 3, that's pretty good. I also work in a field that I'm not an entrepreneur. And so I know that a few of our other alums have that experience and they might combat what I just said. And if so, please do. But just anticipate that you might have to be making some sacrifices in one of those 3 areas to at least get that first job. And I also want to say, once again, unique circumstances change these things for us, because financially, you might be a little bit more concerned about just getting a job, considering the job market right now. Or maybe you're a little bit more concerned about, I need to be home, I need to be supporting my family, or that's where I need to feel supported, and that's where I feel my best. But you have to really consider, what do I need to make me be successful? Now is not necessarily the time to put yourself in a situation where you're going to have to be clawing and fighting and trying to grind your way through something. If that's what you want, that's what you want. I'm not going to discourage you from that, but just consider that you have been doing something that's really hard for a long time, and it's okay to choose something that's going to help you be successful. Does that make sense? I feel like that was kind of a rant, but okay. The last thing I want you to start planning for is your nutrition and your physical health. You still have these resources available to you. You still have strength trainers available to you, at least for another couple of days, and hopefully longer than that. But I want you to understand that nutrition and physical health actually plays a big part in your mental health. And so if suddenly you haven't changed the way that you're eating, but you're not working out nearly as much as you used to, that can have an impact on your mental health. Suddenly, if you start feeling like my body isn't moving the same way, I need to change something, talk to a strength trainer. The main theme here is to reach out. You have access to resources, use them while you have them, okay? And the final part, you probably caught on to this, but things are gonna change. You can have the best laid plans, but it's gonna be different probably in some areas, and hopefully the same in some areas as well. But identifying those potential landmines, you're gonna miss some, and that's okay. You have the skills to adjust. As an athlete, I am 100% positive that each one of you have had to adjust on the fly under stress. And so you can do this. You can absolutely do this. Just take stock every once in a while and say, okay, maybe my plan is going as I wanted it to. Great, keep staying the course. Or maybe this is something that I didn't really anticipate and I need to do something different. That's okay. You can refocus, you can redirect your energy. But please, please, please remember to stay compassionate with yourself. And that might feel like a soft word, like, oh, I don't really want compassion, but it's going to prevent you from falling down that rabbit hole of despair. It's a great way to put something in a pandemic, but compassion can be like a barrier for you. It's going to be like this nice, comfy hug to always go into. And that's not soft. That actually takes a lot of strength to acknowledge I'm doing the best I can. I am not the only one in this, and I'm just going to keep plugging forward. That's where resilience comes in, is you know that you just have to keep moving and it's going to be okay. Okay. Any questions right now?
I just wanted to add a quick tidbit on the nutrition and physical health. I know, coming from a nurse, I hope you all are taking your vitamins right now, especially with this COVID, but that was one thing in an athlete that I was just like, oh, I'm healthy, I don't need to do anything, but please right now take your vitamins. And if you have any questions on that, please reach out to me and I will tell you what to take.
This is perfect.
I just want to jump in here and second what Julie was saying about the skills that you've learned as an athlete and how valuable that is to getting a job. There are so many employers out there who want to hire former student athletes because of those skills that they learned, because what makes you a good athlete will make you a good employee as well. We've actually partnered with a company who works with a bunch of companies who want to hire student athletes. So we have a personalized site that all of you can gain access to, the U State Aggie Network, whether some of you may have heard of it or maybe are already on there. But just know that there's employers on that site who want to hire student athletes. There's actually at least 12 of them right now who are hiring during the COVID pandemic. So I do highly encourage you guys to log on there. I know there's information after this, but there's other resources and tools that are there to help you transition as well. There's resume help, interview help, and just some articles on emotional support as you retire and transition out.
Can I add something real quick? Somebody asked a question on here. What did you do during college to get that ideal career and first job? Did you do an internship? And for me, I had an internship all throughout college, and it helped me. It helped me just understand the working world. I was with a small company, Mountain West Small Business Finance in Salt Lake City, and I did that. And then really any interviews that I really got coming out of college was mostly from just like keeping a network of people that I knew and just talking with people. And that's what I did. I had a few job opportunities, but my whole situation was a little bit different because I went into business and everything like that. But one of the biggest things I want to be able to express to you guys is two things. Okay, one, make sure to put that you're an athlete on your resume. I actually did not think that was something that was important. But then, I figured out that people actually love seeing that. Just like what was Sarah saying, it's like people understand that if you do any sport, doesn't matter what sport you played, they see that you're an athlete and that transitions into the working world. But then two, you guys have to learn how to be able to differentiate yourself. And even though you have, athlete or, your sport on there, what I suggest is if there's an ideal job or ideal career or company that you want to work for, what I would say is actually go to the actual company. And that sounds kind of forward, but what I mean by that is if you actually show that you have some sort of human interaction and you go there and say, hey, my name is, John Doe. I'm a former student athlete that went here, and I've actually applied and I wanted to be able to talk to you guys just about this position that you guys have open. Is it possible for me to talk to somebody? You doing that, it sounds pretty forward, but I'm telling you that differentiates you from everyone else that's applying for that same position. So that's just a suggestion if you want to be able to get yourself, an ideal job if that's what you want. So that's just a suggestion that I've learned from a lot of successful people. So just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you're well equipped to do that because you've had really awkward conversations with administrators, with support staff, maybe asking for what you need. And that's half the battle, is showing up and being intentional, consistent, and being assertive. Is there another question? I think I might have seen it pop up.
Yeah, so I can read it. It says, what are the most important skills to learn while you are a student athlete to aid you in making a transition in life?
I wanted to say that getting uncomfortable, whether it's, I don't know, going to like a some sort of event that's going on campus and just like talking with people, like just get comfortable being uncomfortable, because any type of growth that you're going to have transitioning out, it's going to be new. So just mentally prepare yourself, but just understand like, hey, they have like meetup groups. Go to meetup.com or whatever, and meet up with different people. Practice your communication skills, because I think somebody had quoted it. A lot of companies are looking for people that can communicate, and yeah, I think that's a really good thing, a really good skill for you to be able to learn and be able to grow while you're in college, because you have people around you. There's a lot of different events. There's a lot of different cultures to be able to get yourself around. So that's my suggestion.
Yeah. I think that's one of the number one things that I would say too, Michael, is a lot of things are really uncomfortable, and a lot of times people are going to shrink back into their comfort zones. Our bodies are physiologically made to survive by being in a comfort zone. And you're going to have to keep flexing that muscle of getting uncomfortable on a regular basis. Otherwise, it's going to be really comfortable just to stay with what you know. And that's essentially what could be holding you back. If you take stock in 5 years and you're like, oh, I thought I would be in a different place. Well, check yourself. Am I in my comfort zone right now? And how can I be pushing myself more outside of that? Yeah. Okay. Sarah? No?
Yeah, well, I was just going to add one more skill to answer that question too. As student athletes, you learn resilience. You get knocked down and get back up. You miss a shot, you shoot again. It's what you're used to. I mean, you think about toughest day you had at practice, or the day in weights that you didn't think you were going to be able to walk out because weight coach was adding on the weight, and it was really hard. You walked out, you made it to practice the next day, you made the next shot. So you've made it through some of the tough times. And even if this is a tough time right now, like, how to get through it. You've been trained to get through it, and you've been trained to get through it and be stronger on the other side. So I think that's something that as a student athlete that you've learned, that's going to help you transition into life. You've been built for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know that anybody really asks to build resilience. It's not like you want your strength coach to pile on the extra running at the end, but you're always grateful at the end that he did or they did. Yeah. Okay. So I'm conscious of the time. We don't have that many slides left, but I do want to make sure we get through them. The last one is going to maybe feel a little bit more repetitive once we get there. There it is. So this is kind of just things to consider. These might be factors that you want to focus more on. Maybe it's not that big of a deal, but what could be making your transition easier or harder are involved in all of these different sections here. So whether or not you chose to retire is going to be a factor in how well you take this transition process. If you were hoping to go pro and maybe didn't get signed, or you had an injury that cut your season short, and so you didn't get to go out in the same way that you had hoped to, that's going to feel a little bit worse than if things went exactly as you had planned and you knew, okay, this is going to be my last game and I'm just going to leave it all out there. That's just going to change things a little bit. It could be really hard to let go of the recognition. If you're on campus, then you might get recognized as an athlete, and people might say, oh, I love that, that game that you played, or I love that match that you had. And you might get recognized for a while afterward. And so that's going to remind you of things that you don't do anymore. And that can be kind of hard. Letting go of the structure, for better or worse. I think all of us are realizing how much structure helps us function at our best. And so that can be kind of hard, just letting go. Even if it feels a little bit restrictive, it can be pretty helpful in us functioning at a really high level. And letting go of that consistent support, again, whether or not you realized how nice it is to get to talk to your teammates every Monday morning or every Tuesday. That's just not always going to be there. And you might have to be a little bit more intentional about having that consistent support or having those check-ins. And it might also be letting go of unlived dreams. Maybe you came into your college career saying, I'm going to win a national championship, or I'm going to be an All-American, or I might get all conference, or we might win conference, something like that. And maybe it just didn't happen for you. And so we have to be able to let go of that. And the last thing is maybe we have to let go of being a student athlete. And I don't mean let go by completely forgetting about it. It might be more about moving on to the next chapter and carrying that with you. But like I said initially in the beginning, understanding that it's not all that you are. There are so many more dimensions and facets to your personality, to the things that you can do, and recognizing that this is just something I did. It's not who I am. And the next part is going to be social support. Like a broken record now, I feel. Losing support of campus, coaches, teammates, might feel like starting from scratch. You might feel a little bit more isolated, and it's just going to take a little bit more effort to maintain those really important relationships. But just identify what are those really important relationships that you're going to put a little bit more effort into, and do that. The next thing, we're in unique times. So maybe with jobs, it's going to feel like there's a lot more uncertainty in the market. But Michael had a great point that expectations are going to be very different. You know, as a freshman coming in to Utah State, you might have thought, okay, if I perform in practice, or if I impress the coaches enough, then I'm going to be starting, or I'm going to be like a role player or a playmaker, somebody that's really important. And in the business world, even in grad school, and in a lot of different fields, it doesn't quite work that way. It's not as quick. So you might have to practice a lot more patience, put in a lot more dues, and have that sense of delayed gratification. Just know that you will get there. It just might take a little bit more time, and it won't be as immediate. And then the integration to the workforce, it's going to be different. Not everybody has the same competitive drive. Not everybody is as focused as you. Not everybody's as organized as you. Like, I can remember in my PhD program, there's so many different things that we have to do, like check boxes to make sure that we can graduate. And it was like coming up on a deadline, and somebody in my program was like, oh, what do we have to do for this thing? And I'm like, this is insane. How do you not know? But that's just something that us as athletes, we have to stay on top of our schedules. We have to be organized. And so you're just going to have to adjust to other people being different. And I think you can look at it in one of two ways. One way being, oh my gosh, why am I surrounded by all of these people that don't understand how to do things in the same way that I do? Or you can look at it like, I'm a leader and I can help these other people do things in a way that's pretty effective and efficient. And then you might want to start figuring out, what's the income that I need? How am I going to manage this money that I'm going to be making? Because I hope that it's going to be a lot more than what you have now. And that can be a big adjustment. And the last thing is really prioritizing your time. You're going to have a lot more free time, but like I said earlier, creating structure is going to be really important to maintaining that motivation and that focus, but also understand that it's going to change. It's going to be a little bit different. And you might end up feeling more judgment towards yourself or more guilt because you do have more free time, but your productivity might drop in the way that you once knew it. And that's okay. You're just going through something different. It is a process. And I want you to remember that it's a process. It's going to shift. It's going to change, but it's not going to last. Nothing is permanent. And this is one of those things. Okay. Anybody want to add anything? Michael, did I flub any of your suggestions?
No, not at all. I think it was great. Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything else that for me to add. I just wanted to be able to kind of talk on what I had said, just because, you know, I know that a lot of the times we put like our identity towards like a certain job or a certain position. I know for me in a master's program, everyone wanted to go to Goldman Sachs in Salt Lake City. That's what everyone wanted to do. And, you know, for me, I didn't put my identity towards a company or a position. I just put it towards myself. And so if you guys are applying, one of the annoyingest things that's going to happen is they're going to say, hey, we want someone with experience, timing and everything, especially right now. I can't even imagine for any of you guys that are, looking right now, like people are going to be freezing and just being pretty selective and stuff like that, but just be patient. And that's why I was also saying, like, differentiate yourself, because that's what's going to be able to, have them take an extra look at you and look into your resume. I know for me, I employ people. And so I just want to put it in perspective that, hey, like there's sometimes timing where even if we do want somebody, we need to wait a couple days or a couple weeks, or just make sure that everything is right. You know, for you as somebody that's an employee, it's like, keep your options open, because, you know, don't have your identity be based off of mine or what I'm doing. Base it for yourself off of, hey, what you want to be able to do for yourself in life. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of go into more detail on what I typed out for Taylor. Hope that helps.
Yeah, and Michael, kind of to fall on what you're saying for you, Taylor, is sometimes it takes time to get to where you want to be. Sometimes you can't jump into that one job that you really want, and you may have to go about it in a roundabout way, or it takes time to work up to that job that you want. So I mean, as Michael's saying, it is about the timing. You know, keep your eye on what you want and where you want to be, but sometimes, you know, you may have to have another job that might be not directly what you want to do, but it's a good step in the right direction to where you really want to be. So just an idea there.
Yeah, I would only echo all of that. My first job out of school, because I figured out 3 months before I graduated that I wasn't going to go pre-med. I was a nanny for a year, and it's been a long journey, but the number one thing that we can take from being student athletes is persist through the pain. And it's not always going to be easy, but we do things that we don't want to do all the time as student athletes. And you might have to flex that muscle a little bit more in the professional world. Okay, I am conscious of the time, so let's just get through. So we have maybe time for 1 or 2 questions, but take this as our final gift from you. This is a lot of information, and it's okay if it didn't all stick, but know that we are here. We are here for you, and now's the time that you get to decide what you want to try, what kind of plan you want to put into place, and go from there. We want you to use this as like a jumping off point, and know that we're here to help you along the way.
Yeah, I would add that this is just the beginning of a discussion, and all of you are in different phases. Some of you still have a year of eligibility left, and honestly, consider this gift even richer because you're getting it earlier than some of you that are getting it right at the point where you're at the cliff and you're trying to decide how to spread your wings. But just know, in the email I'm going to send out to all of our student athletes with a link to this recording, I will put all of our contact information in there. I know that all of our panelists have been more than willing to have one-on-one conversations with you. All of you know that I'm available to you in any form or fashion, even right now via a phone call, a text, or even this format. We are all in it together to assist each other. So consider this a start of the conversation, and we'll continue. Any questions that we have? Let's see. I don't see any there, but you can unmute yourself and ask a question too if you want.
And go ahead.
Is it Maya who asked a question? Yeah, I know my number's not on here, but Amy, I just sent you an email with my number. So if you want to put that in your mass email, your mass email, I'm totally available. I know all of us are here for you guys. So if you have any questions, totally feel free to reach out to us via email, text, call, whatever. We're totally open. We've been through this, and I know you guys are in a different circumstance, but we're all here for you.
Yeah, we'll add that information in for sure. Maybe she wanted to know what vitamins. I want to know, what's the number 1 vitamin, Bree?
Well, immunity is huge, right? So vitamin C, echinacea, and believe it or not, gut health is really important. So like fiber and probiotics.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if this is going to cut us off. So you're welcome to jump off if you have to right now, but we can stay on for a little bit, answer any questions.
And know that there's resources. There's resources. So the U State, the Athlete Network that Sarah plugged, there's a resource link for that. The NCAA, love them or leave them, they do have a lot of resources for retired student athletes. On that website, there's a link there. And then I'm a part of the Association of Applied Sports Psychology. And if there's anything particular about the COVID-19 pandemic, we put a lot of resources together. So there's a link for that too.
I'd like to make a comment real quick as a former student athlete, and I do mean former. I'd like to say that this is something that, once I got the email in regards to this from Amy, it something that I felt like every student athlete needs to participate in and take part in, because it's not something that, you know, we have available to us on a daily basis. You know, some of the things that you guys are talking about, you know, again, as a former student athlete, you know, I was totally lost as to how to balance all of this, how to, you know, because you're so consumed with your day-to-day, you know, obligations as being a student athlete that you rarely take time for yourself because of the demands that you know, they demand. I mean, they have demands for you as coaches or whatnot. But, you know, you guys talked about the criteria, some of the things that, you know, employers look for in student athletes. It would be great to have a list of those things so that, you know, we could be aware of, I mean, is it leadership, coachability, or, you know, the resolve that you have as a student athlete on a daily basis. Some of those things will be important, but having known those things, you know, back then, you know, I probably wouldn't have dealt with some of the issues. And I'll be frank, you know, on this call real quick, because I know we're running out of time. But for all of you guys, you know, just, you know, when my career as a player was over, you know, there's bouts of depression because you have no idea of where to go next. You know, you get lost in the identity of being a student athlete. You just don't know where to turn. So this is very critical and very important for all student athletes. And I'm just so glad that you guys were able to put this together. And I look forward to taking part in the next opportunity that presents itself. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Any other questions? Anything that maybe we don't have time to talk about, but we didn't touch on, that we can make sure we can include in either a follow-up workshop, or hopefully at some point we can go face-to-face. Again, anything that comes to mind, if you feel comfortable unmuting and sharing, or you can write it in the chat function. And then we've got Chucky. Chucky's on. He can drop some words of wisdom for the tail end of this. He's like big eyes, like, what?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry I wasn't able to make it through the majority of this meeting, but I mean, the biggest thing, just moving forward with life, and I was lucky enough to work with Coach Phillips, and he's definitely right in regards to once you guys get done with whatever sport it is, or whenever that time comes, you kind of have to redefine yourself, because you're so strongly attached to either your sport or the position that you play within that sport. And I mean, two things. One is you definitely need to appreciate it and allow that to be a stepping stone for your future endeavors. I was lucky enough to play quarterback, and so some of the leadership aspects that I learned during that time have allowed me to essentially excel and propel myself a little bit more within the coaching profession I'm in now. But at the same time, I kind of have to learn to recreate myself and understand that that's not who I am as much anymore. I still have a little bit in me, but what am I doing now? What do I like to do? How can I influence other people that isn't 100% attached to my sport? Granted, I still coach football, but it's the life aspect that allows me to kind of excel in what I'm doing. And the last thing really I want to throw out there is, do not be afraid to rely on the people around you. And one of the slides that we had earlier, I don't know if you guys showed it or not, but I said rely on your family base, rely on your support system. Your support system can be your family. Your support system can be your coaches. I'm lucky enough to, in this group chat alone, or in this video chat alone, I got at least 5 or 6 people. I have their phone numbers right now that I talk to enough to say that they're my support base. So just understand who's kind of in your corner, and don't pin yourself in that corner to where you can't reach out and branch out and gain more. But like I said, just never be afraid to rely on your support system. That's definitely going to help you out in great times and in the tough times as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you could join us, Chucky. That was perfect. Any final thoughts or questions?
I can just like leave a final thought. You know, just having having a guide for yourself. Really, you guys just ask that question to yourself: how do you want to live? And just write it down on paper. And that's what's going to be able to guide you. Everything else in between that, I'm telling you, it's gonna make sense. It's just gonna be made out for you from that point. most of the time you'll see that people, they have a degree and they get into a completely different industry, or they, life takes them somewhere else. But if you at least have the end goal in mind, it's directing you in the right direction. Don't be that person that goes throughout life just letting life take you wherever it takes you. Be guided, and have a destination, have a goal, like what Sarah Landis said, and everything that you're going to do is going to be able to go towards that. I couldn't find the book that I was quoting with John C. Maxwell, but you guys can look up John C. Maxwell, and that will show you a lot of just like the mindset of what you want to be able to have with bridges and keeping your identity and growing with your future. And there's one more book that I know, it's called The One Thing, that will help just guide you in terms of the one thing that you want in life. Being able to go for that success or that dream job or whatever it is that you want, it will help you have a guide. So just wanted to leave that.
So I want to thank Julia so much for putting this together. She has been a great resource for me in a lot of different areas, and just really appreciate her. I want to say thanks to our former student athletes who were in all of your shoes not too long ago, and they have been so gracious with their time. And then I want to commend all of you for being on this call, because you don't have to be. And maybe I bugged you a handful of times to please get on and take part in this, but you did, and it was still your personal choice, and you're going to be above the curve for it. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you guys, how much I freaking miss all of you. I want to see you all again, but it's fun to see you in this format. I miss you a ton, and just know that we're all here for you. I'll send out an email, all of our contact information. Do not be shy. Reach out if you have questions or you want to have a side conversation with somebody about what we're talking about. Do it. Even if you don't even know who the person is. If you've never met Mike in person, or you don't know Sarah or Bree or Chucky, they're there to answer your questions or have a conversation, because they've been through it, and they're currently, honestly, I've been out of my sport for a long time, and there's still certain transitions I still go through. So just know that it's not lifelong, but it takes a while, and it has different phases. So again, thank you all. Stay safe, take your vitamins, as Bree says, and we'll do this again if we're still in this space for a lot longer. We can have another conversation. So with that, have an awesome day. Peace out.